All right. So now let's talk about deductions. So deductions, this is what you subtract from your gross pay, right? So what are these deductions? The deductions are in two categories. We have mandatory or statutory deductions, and two, we have voluntary deductions. Mandatory deductions or statutory deductions, these are deductions which are required by law. For instance, if you are in the US, they have state tax or federal tax. Those ones are mandatory deductions from the gross pay. In Malawi, we have PAYE, pay, pay as you earn. That's the income tax, and it is deducted at the day of preparing the payroll, right? Then we have, under the same mandatory or statutory deductions, we have pension contributions, okay? Um, these ones, it's both the employer and the employee who have to make these contributions. So the employee is also required to be deducted pension from their gross pay, right? Then there are other deductions such as um, health insurance, union dues. Okay, if you are a member of the trade union, right? So forget about this. The loans you don't need the loans under mandatory or statutory deductions. So health insurance in other jurisdictions, um, it is a requirement. It is a law that um, employees should be deducted a certain percentage on the health insurance. And also, if you, as I said, if you're a member of a workers grouping or a workers union or trade union, there's also a certain percentage you have to be what? You have to be deducted from. All right. So as I said, statutory deductions, these are mandated contributions by law that the employer must remit. Okay. Uh, Examples include Social Security or Malawi's NNF, NSS, NSSF, and PAYE, and these must be remitted to relevant authorities monthly. Right. So this is the case of Malawi, but the mandatory deductions or statutory deductions vary from country to country, jurisdiction to jurisdiction, right? So, like in the UK, you have to contribute to the NHS, something like that. Okay, and obviously you have to contribute to the IRA, whatever the tax collecting body in the UK. The okay, the equivalent of, or if it is already the IRA, okay, the Internal Revenue Authority. Okay, so those are the the mandatory. It is a must to deduct, okay, um, those payments from the gross pay, right? So what are the voluntary deductions? Voluntary deductions are those which the employee requests the employer to deduct. For instance, um, if you have a loan at the bank, okay, and monthly you have to pay, let's say, $200. So you request your employer to deduct $200 every month, and that request must be in writing. Okay. Also, if you are contributing towards uh, a pension fund, okay, on your own. You can also write your employer saying, okay, every month deduct from my salary $100 for investment in the stock market. So those are voluntary deductions. They are not required by law. Okay, so we have loan repayments, union dues, retirement plans, charities. Okay, if you say, okay, you pledge like let's say every month deduct from my salary $50. I want to support the um uh a certain charity, let's say Care International. Okay, they have a project in Malawi, educating young girls. Okay, so for you to support that cause, you are contributing, let's say, £50. So that £50 is a voluntary deduction, and it has to be authorized by the employee in writing. So you write that your employer deduct certain amount. All right. So in a nutshell, those are the deductions. Those are the two groupings or categories of deductions you have to think about, right? And now let's look at other terms you come across. We're talking of the net pay. I might have talked about this in my explanations, like what is net pay? Okay, net pay, this is the final amount the employee receives after all deductions are made. And this is also called take-home pay. You have calculated the gross pay for an employee. You have deducted their pension. You have deducted their pay, that is income tax. You have deducted all other voluntary deductions like loan repayments, contribution to charities, contribution towards your investments. What is the remaining? What goes to the employee? What the employee receives in their bank account is what we call net pay or take home pay, right? The other thing, talking of payroll. So this one we'll be talking about at the end of the day, once we have prepared the payroll, we'll be talking about the general ledger impact of our payroll transactions. So we're saying accounting entries that reflect the payroll transactions in the company's general ledger. They record salaries, taxes, contributions, and payroll liabilities. I will show you once I'm done with everything about preparing the payroll journal, or rather preparing the payroll schedule. Okay, this will come at the end. And also at the same time, at the end of the month, you need to get a pay slip, right? Every employee must get, it's a right of every employee to get a pay slip. So this is a document which shows the gross amount you have received in that particular period or month, the deductions, the detailed deductions you have been you have been deducted from your gross pay, you're subtracted from your gross pay, and it also shows the net pay or the take-home pay. So it is a document issued to employees showing a breakdown of their salary, deductions, and net pay for a specified period. All right. So let's go to calculations of deductions, right? I'll still go to this Excel worksheet. All right. So we have the gross pay here for these employees. Now we need to come up with their deductions. Deductions. Okay. deductions. Okay. All the deductions, the one which has more or a bit complicated is the calculation of PAYE, the pay as you earn. How do you calculate the income tax, right? So there, depending on a jurisdiction, there are tax bands whereby if an employee, let's say, gets $100,000, okay, over $100,000, there are certain rates that apply. If let's say they earn less than they earn a minimum wage, there's also a rate that applies to that particular person or grouping, right? So here we want to calculate PAYE, that is income tax for this, let's say for Alice Banda, for this month, right? So here are the tax bands. The first 100,000, the rate is 0. The next 200,000, the rate is what? 25%. And the excess at 30%. So how do we calculate their PAYE, right? How do we calculate their PAYE? So here's how we calculate the PAYE. Okay. Let me get Aris Banda. This is their gross pay. And this column, I'll put the tax rate. Okay. So we're saying the first 100,000, here I'll put 100,000. The rate is what? Is 0. Okay. Okay. The rate is 0. So after I have deducted the 100,000, how much am I left with? I am left with 305,000. Okay. Out of 305,000, they are saying the next 200,000, the rate is what? Is 25. Just, just a minute. Okay. Okay. So the next 200,000, the rate is what? 25%. Okay. 0.25. That's the rate. Okay. So out of 200,000, okay, how much are we getting? 25% times that. So that's the tax we're getting out of the 200,000. And then what is our balance there? It will be 300 minus 200,000, giving us 105. So then we're saying the excess at what? At 30%. So here we'll get 0.3. The excess at 30%. So it will be 30% of the excess, right? And how much tax do we have? That's the total tax we're getting. Okay, so yeah, just a minute. Just put the minus. Yeah, so this is the total tax we are getting from, that's the pay we are getting from what? From Alice Band. So it's like the first 100,000, the tax rate is 0. So you do not deduct anything, right? So you subtract the 100,000 from the 400,000, the gross pay, to see how much is remaining. So out of the amount which is remaining, we're also subtracting 200,000. So out of that 200,000, we're only getting 25%, which is 50,000. So after we subtract 200,000 from 305,000, how much are we getting? We're getting 105,000. So this is the excess of 200 plus 100. That is the excess of 300. The rate will be what? Will be 30%. So it will be whatever is remaining there after deducting those tax bands. We are remaining with 105,000. So there we deduct 30%. So how much are we getting? We're getting 31,300. So this is how we calculate income tax for an individual, for an employee, right? So those are the using these tax bands, okay? Right. So now let me stop there. We have calculated the payee. Now when I come back, I'll take you through how to calculate the other deductions, especially the payee, especially the pension, right? So for now, let me stop there. Thank you.